Hello everyone, welcome to Brick Vault. Today we are entering the expansive world of Halo once again. From the designer Zeo, we have the custom Lego minifigure scale UH-144 Falcon and the YSS-1000 Saber from Halo, specifically Halo Reach. The Falcon is a troop transport, tilt, and traverse rotor helicopter capable of quick extractions and minor aerial support, while the Saber, on the other hand, is a prototype space superiority starfighter that excels in dogfighting. If you are familiar with any of the other Halo models from Zeo, these are solid builds, strong enough to be played with, and in fact include a lot of play features. Before I get any further into the finer points of these models though, first I'd like to say that if you wanted to build either of them, the instructions can be found at our web store, brickvault.toys. Included with each purchase is the PDF step-by-step building guide, a digital parts list for quickly uploading and ordering all the pieces you will need. All of our models are built in real life, tested for strength, and the instructions are tested so they're easy to follow along. Buying instructions is an excellent way to help support us and the talented people we work with, like Zeo, who has also built the Warthog in all of its variations, the Scorpion, a couple of different versions of the Mantis. He has also made some Mario-themed builds, a big line of different kinds of dogs, and the Dune Ornithopter. Also, jumping back to the Halo builds, if you did want to get all of these models, there is a bundle for a slightly cheaper cost for the instructions. Everything's linked in the description below. And now let's take a closer look first at the Falcon. In contemporary terms, this looks kind of like a V-22 Osprey, but acts more like an MH-6 Little Bird. This model has a great look to it with some rugged angles and decent looking shapes around the outside for sure. It's fairly easy to handle and has a surprising amount of functions, and this is where I'd really like to jump in. It's got space for 3 assigned minifig seats in the center cab, plus spots for minifigures to operate either of the M247H heavy machine guns. The heads for the guns can swivel, but if you want to keep the minifigures studded into the model at the same time as holding the handles, then they're almost basically locked into place, aside from the fact that they can still look up and down a little bit. Now, the entire base for the guns can also swivel a bit too. It's not a huge range of motion, but it does give you some freedom for posing. To access the cockpit, you need to lift this bit of armor plating just above the windscreen, which then opens up enough space for the windscreen itself to ratchet up. Lots of good details here on the inside, including some manual controls and multiple different control consoles. Now, there's still plenty of interactivity here on the build. The front gun can turn and tilt. There are also some fins in the back with varying degrees of articulation, like these little flag pieces can also move, I suppose, but the last truly posable feature for the build is with the double rotors. Not only do the blades spin, but each rotor system can turn as well. This has got a lot of functionality. It certainly makes it better for posing in the long run. And I suppose technically, actually, now that I think about it, the last true function for the Falcon is the little display stand. You can play around with the center of mass for best balance, but I've found that if you stud the model into the stand right at the cross section of the plates at the bottom, you've got a pretty solid center point. This also works the other way around if you want to have the nose pointing up. And if you really want it, it does feel slightly less solid, but not too bad. You can also stud the Falcon in on its side for it to look like it's turning a little bit as well. It's a really fun model to handle, surprisingly easy to mess around with. And now let's jump on over to the Saber. I like that the official Halo universe, at least in the page that I found, they use the exact same Star Wars terminology. This is a starfighter, just like an X-Wing or an A-Wing is called a starfighter. Now, I don't know if I could point directly to a specific type of modern fighter jet that this design is based on, but its resemblance to a contemporary fighter jet is certainly unmistakable. I'd actually like to know which ones you think it's probably closest to. Anyways, this makes sense considering it is meant to fulfill the same role in space, and the video game designers just wanted it to look cool. It is a solid model, both in terms of its structure, but also it is a lot heavier than it looks. Much of the internals are basically just solid bricks and plates. Now, in terms of the functions, you do have the handful of fins that can bend a little on the model, but a lot of the times I don't know if that really counts as like a full function. The first transformation feature here is the 3 landing gear though. The feet and legs can ratchet into place fairly quickly, and the landing gear is still visible when folded, but they don't stick out too much at the bottom either way. Also, there are details for those 30mm cannons on either side of the cockpit, and just below is the folding open launch doors for the ST Medusa missiles. The pieces don't actually stud into the model, but instead in this opening they rest there in clusters of 4. When this thing is posing on the stand, it's easy to see them, but if you are swooshing the model around and the doors are fully open all the way, then they would probably fall out. The last function here is with the cockpit. The windscreen opens up to show a sizable interior with a decent amount of details for just a single seater. I do believe in universe this is designed to fit 2 crew, but the scale came down a little here for the Lego build on the Saber. Lastly, the stand works by slotting the rubber Technic pieces just between some of the grooves along the bottom of the body, and considering there is no studding that actually happens here, it is a surprisingly decent connection. There are some great visual details on this build as well. I really like the way the thrusters came together in the back. The inlaid white striping just behind the cockpit works really well, and also those sensor details right in the very front on the nose of the Saber just look good for a model like this. Now, ultimately, these builds are mostly fun. I'd like to say that they're a bit more accessible in terms of the average custom build. There aren't any connections that are too difficult to put together, and the handling is a bit more straightforward and easy to interact with. This falls in line pretty darn well with his playable building approach for the rest of his Halo designs. And of course, I'd like to know what you guys think in the comments below. Of course, let me know what types of other custom builds you would love to see built in the studio for the future. If you enjoy our content, feel free to like, subscribe, comment, or share. Thanks so much for sticking around to the end, and we'll see you next time at Brick Vault.